And here we are. We've got the intro music rolling. My name is Scott Duvall, and I'm joined today. Let me turn this down a little bit.
I don't see us on here.
You don't
You're seeing it on the YouTube page?
Live stream?
I don't, but I'll redo the page.
Well, I'll go ahead and introduce you. I am here with...
Oh, there we are. Yeah.
So I've got Will Leitch, and I'm Scott Duvall. We are two of the three for the Waiting Since Last Saturday crew, and unfortunately we can only do two at once because as far as technology is concerned, I seem to only be able to get one co-host at a time. So Will, I appreciate you joining me today. How's it going?
It's weird. The live stream is about 3 or 4 seconds after me, so it's cool. Like I feel like I can predict the future. Like I'll say something and then I'm going to do it in like 5 seconds.
Right. How do we look on the live stream?
As awesome as ever, obviously. Hey, how's it going, man? It's good to chat with you. I loved watching your and Tony's thing. I got a little jealous. Yeah. So I was happy to be on. And I'm in the backyard here. I've been talking to a lot of my friends in New York who are going through this as well, and they are all incredibly envious of my yard. I will say I did a Zoom meeting with a bunch of people that I worked with in the past. Zoom is, by the way, terrible software that is stealing everything off your computer. If you get a chance, use Google Hangouts. It's so much better. But I understand I had to use Zoom like a lot of other people did. And they were also, because they're all in their very small, tiny, dark apartments where everything is so sad. And I'm like, look, trees outside. Look, children. So children. I have children sitting right next to me right now, as a matter of fact. So I'm happy to be here and certainly happy to talk with you.
Well, we're actually using Skype today. It works really well with the software integration that I've been using, and we've already had a couple of people. Well, Terry Crews, he joined us the other day with Tony, and he commented that Will seemed to have upgraded his camera. So you are looking good. The viewers at home think that you're looking good. I like the outdoor setup that you're using.
Yeah, it's good. It's good for crying out loud. We're outside. Eventually it's going to be pouring down. It's going to be 150 degrees. It's been wonderful. I have to say one advantage I've had in this too is, I obviously live in 5 Points. I've been running every day. I work at a home anyway, other than having the children here, and everyone generally terrified about everything. Right. This is not that different than every day for me. I'm still keeping busy in the same way. And I'm running down the Firefly Trail and the Coney Connector Trail, whatever it's called, the North of Coney one by me. And it's fun. It's this is a normal day for me. I don't understand why everybody's freaking out.
Well, we got lucky today. A couple of our friends left town for I guess they went to their lake house, and the kids went over and used their pool today. So that was a fun break.
Whoa! Wow! Okay, a wind gust just came and knocked our umbrella off of the lawn thing. Very exciting.
Live on, you can't edit that out.
I can't edit that. That was amazing.
That almost was awesome.
I'm to watch it happen. That was really wild. Okay, I'm about to freak out. That'll be fun.
So,
okay, sorry. Go ahead.
So
I just wanted to freak out.
I wanted to ask you about Tony and I talked a little bit about the Georgia Football Reserve Fund, because that was in the news this week, about how Georgia's sitting pretty right now because they have $100 million to dip into if needed for the, say part of the college football season is played or none or maybe all of it. I'm not making predictions right now, but have you done any reading on the fact that some of these schools out there are really going to be hitting hard times, especially if the college football season is delayed at all?
Matt Brown, one of the two Matt Browns that writes about college football. Not the one I worked with at SportsCenter, the one that works at SB Nation, has a really good newsletter where he's written a lot about this. Sorry, I'm fine. There's just pollen everywhere. But he's written a lot about this, specifically about the idea of the first sports that are going to have to go. It's why everyone's so desperate, right? It's why I'd like to think that everyone's so desperate to get football back because they want to make me as a football fan happy. But they are like forget just sports. Stop doing that, Win. Stop doing that. Get off of that. Forget just sports. the idea, like schools themselves are going to be in a lot of financial trouble if they don't get football back. I think we've seen a lot of different industries kind of show their asses a little bit and what they're overextended in. William, stop, please. What they're overextended in and what they're. I think college football has to get back for a lot of people, because if it doesn't, forget just like losing your wrestling team, for example. There's going to be major cuts for like a lot of these universities, because sports are just such a big part of what their budget is. So yeah, I think Georgia's going to be fine. Alabama's going to be fine. Illinois is going to be fine. But your some of your smaller Sun Belt schools, some of your Southern Conference schools, I think that's where you get worried, because television money. We've talked for a long time about how sports has been so adhering to the college bubble, to this television bubble, and the fact that television is so important for not just college sports but all sports, that but it's still archaic. Like, the only reason that sports really is in this major boomlet, or has been in this major boomlet, is because nobody watches TV the way that they used to. And so because of that, live sports has a power. People still watch sports the way they watched it in 1984, and they don't watch television in any other way the way they did in 1984. But now we're realizing the downside of that, which is they've gotten all this money out of this kind of archaic business plan, and all because no one ever imagined not having sports to televise. Now you're seeing what happens if even the slightest thing pushes them off their edge.
Yeah, I was watching a couple of the replays that ESPN has had, especially on the weekends, and one thing that bothers me is, like, I was going to watch a 2008 playoff game between the Celtics and somebody. I don't even remember. But it gave away in the description who won. And then I was like, well, I don't want to watch it now because I know who wins and I know how many points are scored. And so I kind of wish that they would dial that back a little bit to, a game that was played 10 years ago, to maybe not say, here's what happened, in the description, and then just let me watch the game.
Yeah, they've talked about this. We actually, I'm still running for MLB, and they're having like meetings to update us on kind of everything that's going on. And one of the things they've talked about, because they've been playing, I feel like MLB Network has been awesome throughout all of this, because the advantage that they have that the NFL doesn't have. The NFL is obviously doing, to me, and the NFL is still living in the alternative universe where everything is fine. And it's awesome, right? It's like, oh yeah, sure. We'll just pretend there's going to be a season, and Tom Brady leaving is a big deal, and it's generally the same offseason we always have. But so therefore there's not like old games to watch. Baseball's been showing all of these old games, and it's been really fun. But one of the things they talked about was the idea that like everybody generally knows who won Game 6 of the 1986 World Series. Everyone kind of knows all these things. They might not know who won like a random 2014 Marlins Angels game. And I think there is value to that, because sure, someone could go to Baseball Reference and just look it up, but why?
Right. That's what I'd like to see.
That happened in the middle of the podcast, by the way. I think, sorry, Alexa just noticed that the umbrella flew off. So, like literally in the middle of the podcast, the umbrella went flying out. So I've only been able to fix it because I've been talking to you. So sorry.
What I was going to say is that I'd love to see like an old Braves, Giants game from the early 90s that the networks knew was an awesome game, maybe an awesome ending that I don't even remember the end of the score, as long as the Braves win,
right.
Or something. But just something like that would be cool, because like you said, it's great to be able to have the kids sit down and watch like Game 6 of the Red Sox-Mets World Series when it goes through Bill Buckner's leg. But,
right.
It's not
everybody
that much
knows
fun
that.
For me. Yeah,
right. Everybody knows
the way it ends. So.
But yeah, they're working on, and I think that you're seeing. I wrote a piece about this for the Washington Post about how ESPN's had to get kind of creative with a lot of things. I think that moving up The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary, my son William is very excited about that already. He wrote me a book report about Michael Jordan, so he's very excited to actually see it. I'm such a mean teacher, by the way. In addition to their schoolwork, I'm actually assigning them other things for me that they are due for me. So they've been doing book reports every week. I think that Michael Jordan, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and Barack Obama are the three. Is that right, William? The 3 books so far, and who are the Beatles? And the Beatles, yes, and the Beatles. So, yeah, so basically we've been, but yeah, so for me, that's a good idea. The Last Dance is a really good idea, but eventually, they're going to have to actually show some games. They can get by while they can for a while. Okay, I'm getting water all over myself. through this. I don't know if we had to do this now, but
sorry for the technical difficulties.
But I don't know why we had to do this right now.
This is great.
But anyway, so but for me, sorry, if you're listening to this on the regular podcast feed, you must be very bewildered what's going on. So to get you caught up, I'm outside, I'm at our deck chair, and the umbrella literally blew away. And then my wife decided to put it back up here and soak me with water while I was doing the live podcast. So I apologize.
That's good. Well, I just to change gears real quick, it's weird for me to see all of this news that Dog Nation's covering and in the AJC about recruiting. And Georgia is doing pretty good in the 2021 recruiting. A couple of the things, and I know you don't follow recruiting that much, Will, but there were 3 guys recently that they've been targeting. Micah Morris from Camden County is the number 11 offensive tackle in the country. Showing that Matt Luke is still making roads with the offensive line. Lovasa Carroll, a 4-star running back out of Warrenton, Georgia. And if you know where Warrenton, Georgia is, you get an extra point on this podcast because you know what county that is, Will?
I don't. Madison?
It's Warren County.
Warren County. No.
Yeah, it's out near Augusta, Georgia.
I have to say the COVID maps are teaching me all sorts of counties in Georgia I didn't know beforehand, by the way. I'm learning all the different counties of Georgia by watching.
Georgia has the most counties east of the Mississippi of any state.
Yeah, and it's funny, my parents live in Winterville now, and I never realized, I'm in like that weird little corner that is Oglethorpe. Just like this strange little patch of land. Anyway,
Winterville stretches a little bit into Oglethorpe County, even though it's the only other city in Athens, Clark County. Right. And then the final guy that Georgia's targeting, he hasn't committed yet, but Elijah Judy. No relation to Jerry Judy, I don't think. It's spelled the same way. He's out of Philadelphia. He's an edge rusher. So those are the kind of the updates on the recruiting front with the Bulldogs. So one thing I did see. Mike Griffith of Dog Nation did an interview with Cole Kubelik. He's a sideline reporter for ESPN. And Cole brought up an interesting point that, say the college football season starts, we're just going to assume it starts on time, in September or something, but maybe with limited practice. He said if he were devising a plan, he would think that just to rush the quarterback, create all kinds of havoc from the defensive side of the ball, because the offense is not going to have time. I mean, think about it. We got Jamie Newman, a bunch of new offensive linemen. They're not going to have enough time to gel. So really advantage defense, if we're looking pro forma to the college football season starting up, I'd say that gives Georgia a big advantage early in the season. Yeah,
though I would say we give them a big disadvantage when it comes to the new quarterback. And the new receivers we've seen on social media, he obviously has an accurate and cool arm, at least outside during quarantining. But that was already going to be an issue because it was just going to be one. They were only going to have 1 year with him. But certainly, I know that was something they were valuing, was to be able to get reps with everyone and get everybody comfortable with that. So I think that's an issue. I agree. I think there's. I wonder if this is going to be even a bigger problem in the NFL. Because, a lot of college packages are complicated, but they're all based in something relatively simple. Like there's 8 or 9 different things, whereas an NFL playbook is you have to memorize a million different permutations of a million different things. That I think is going to be a larger problem in the NFL than college. Because college has a lot of different formations. Sorry, Jesus, so much pollen out here. So I get for having class outside. To me, basically what the deal is with college, there's a lot of different permutations, but I think there's only 5 or 6 basic choices they have. They try to keep it simple enough as is. Whereas the NFL, I think it's going to be really, really complicated because every coach in the NFL thinks they have to control every single aspect of every single thing, and they're just not going to have the time to do that. I think it's hilarious with the NFL draft coming. I think next week, which I have to say, I never watched the NFL draft. I am going to watch the crap out of the NFL draft this year, and I never ever watched the NFL draft. I am absolutely watching it this year. But even I find it hilarious that all the general managers in the NFL are like, oh, we can't do this out of our homes. Don't you realize we are if you were to listen to NFL general managers, they are performing cold fusion to figure out the NFL draft. I mean, you're sitting in a room picking names off a board. They can't believe how they're going to have to work under these conditions, which is a very NFL kind of way to be.
Wouldn't that be funny if they automated it like we do in our fantasy football draft, or let their kids pick it?
Yeah, that would be. I have to say, there is something. One of the many ways that I think this is changing American life is it's definitely showing how that like things are not really as complicated as we've all tried to make them look and make them sound. And the idea that the NFL draft, I mean, they just act like it's just the most complicated and serious thing to ever want to go to. And then you realize that or you could just do it in your kitchen. Yeah. You can also just draft people in your kitchen if you absolutely had to. And I feel like I think we've seen this in media. I think we've seen this a lot on television, to be honest. The idea that I think this is ultimately going to be good for television in that there's going to be, I think it's been frustrating for a lot of people to see media coverage that it's always just people that live in New York. And those are the people that I have access to be on because generally speaking, they'd rather have you in studio than have you remote. I have to say, some of the more interesting backgrounds I've seen on all sorts of television right now and people in their homes, I think it personalizes things and humanizes a lot of people. I think it will help in that coverage as well if we ever get through this.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've enjoyed seeing how some people have their homes decorated or lack of decoration.
Yeah. Yes. But I think it's fun. Like, to me, I think there's value in that. I think that it definitely makes more sense for that than whenever you see the morning shows and it's just like, here's the Today Show and here's the host that's 7 feet, strategically 7 feet away. That looks weirder than just if they were in their home. Like, I feel like the late night shows look more normal than that. Yeah. To say the least.
So Robert Wolf is joining us, and he comments, yes, they should do their draft on Yahoo with a 3-minute timer.
Yeah, I'm down. Listen, that would be fine with me, and I would just like to generally see less self-seriousness about this stuff. But it'll be fun to watch. There is an actual relevant sporting event happening next week, and I'll definitely watch it.
So where do you think Jake Fromm ends up, or do you have any idea? Maybe second round?
I mean, I do think the fact that they haven't had a ton of combines and a ton of physical stuff is going to help him because that's generally where he is thought to come up short, is that his arm isn't as strong or he's not as fast and so on. But like everyone respects the intangibles. Everyone expects how smart he is. He makes good decisions. So I think that only helps because that's a known in a situation where there's a lot of unknowns. I still feel like late second, third round is what you're looking at there, but we'll see. It will be, as someone that has spent a lot of time running around here, listening to both podcasts and listening to the brilliant. I'm just going to give so much love to the official Dogcast podcast, which you introduced me to, Scott.
The podcast.
The podcast, yes. I can tell they've been influential because now Illinois is doing this with their official athletics podcast of playing old games pretty much straight through. Ordinarily, I like it when they include the commercials, but only like it when they include commercials on all broadcasts when they're like from the 80s. Yeah. So you can hear like, buy a Betamax, use your Rubik's Cube. And it's not quite as fun when this is just like a couple years ago. But to be able to listen to those games I did not listen to, that's another advantage. I've never actually listened to these games before. I've actually never listened to the call. So it's really, really fun. The Rose Bowl in particular, I did not know. I think, is it Dowdle that's on the sideline?
Yes.
Is it Chuck Dowdle? Yeah. So apparently he does this thing before every game because I never listen to the games. I'm always watching them or I'm there. He does this thing for every game where he does like this fired up on the sideline, sort of like, go get him, dogs. Here we go. Let's whatever he's doing. And it's very exciting. Like, I have to say, it always makes me run faster. It's very silly and over the top, but I kind of love it. So I think they have the Rose Bowl up there. They just put the Notre Dame game, not this year's Notre Dame game, but the game at South Bend up there. I think it's very fun. I think it's telling. I think you can tell a lot about the different athletic programs. Georgia has put nothing but football games up on their audio thing, and Illinois has put only basketball games up on their audio thing. So that tells you a little bit about each.
You know, it's interesting you bring up Chuck Dowdle in his pregame. I remember that he had interviewed Kirby Smart before the South Carolina game as he was coming out of the tunnel, and Kirby was the one telling him, "We're not ready."
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, and I think it's telling. And I had forgotten about that. I'd forgotten about that too. But yeah, so it's I've been enjoying that a little bit. I feel like As someone that works in sports media, it's been interesting to see how certain people have handled the way they cover this stuff. I feel like I'm writing about a lot of old games and a lot of and generally how the sports world is reflected in this. It's worth noting that I wrote a weekly piece for New York Magazine. This week I made it about politics because there's really no updates. Nothing really came out of the president's meeting with the commissioners last week, so there really wasn't any kind of new takeaway out of that. So, but I think it's telling. Even if you look at like The Athletic, like I love Seth Emerson to death, but like I don't know if you saw his piece about because basically The Athletic is all doing a how to support your local restaurants and so on. And of course there was that famous, you've seen the Georgia Athletics tweet. They're like, support your local restaurants.
That was
like
terrible.
McDonald's and Zaxby's, and even Zaxby's is kind of close, maybe, but they're all chains, of course. And I think they got adequately roasted for that. But I did kind of enjoy Seth. And maybe I know I'm a true Athenian now because I like making fun of Watkinsville people about when they talk about Athens restaurants. That's actually one of my favorite things that they do. It's very like, so the last resort. Yes, we know about the last resort. We know about the last resort. Zaxby's. Yes, we also know about Zaxby's. Have you heard there's another last resort? Yes. We know that. We know all of those things. That piece definitely had like a little. I could definitely tell that it was the piece that Seth and the Athletic did. Definitely was like, this was written by 3 people from Watkinsville about the food that they have in Athens. It felt a little bit like, hey, so when you go in for a game, here's the places you can eat and then get the hell out. I would encourage everyone. There is a great site if you actually do want to support local Athens businesses. There's a great site called Classic City Love. But they have a specific page under the directory that shows which places are open, how they are doing delivery, how they're doing pickup. I have found certain places have been really, really good about pickup and curbside. Certain places have not been as good. I frankly would have thought Ad Drug would have been better at this, but they were not. I literally, in the middle of a pandemic, had to ask teenagers to move out of the front door so I could go in the place. Like, I feel like you got to be better, Ad Drug. You're a city institution. You got to improve on that. But like the National, you can get food from the National. You can get food from Chuck Fish. You can get food from. There's just many great places. I would encourage anyone that actually wants to support Athens businesses and Athens restaurants who are obviously reasonably struggling now to go to Classic City Love. I feel like that's the best way you can get it.
Yeah, we ordered out tzatziki's, and
I've gotten tzatziki's a couple of times.
It was so easy. In fact, they have an app where you literally can tap it and it says "I'm here," and we were gone within 20 seconds of tapping that "I'm here" button and had our food, and it was awesome. They have really great food.
And also, it's also worth noting, and what's an already difficult time, and I don't want to dwell on this, but kind of an institution here in Athens, that we lost Marty from Marty's at Midday. Mm-hmm. She's died during this process, and I think a lot of people are really mourning her. What was already a difficult time has become even more difficult in that regard. So to me, we have an advantage that we don't have a kitchen. We started remodeling our kitchen literally like a month and a half ago in exquisite timing for us to do that. So we're eating out a lot more than we ordinarily do. So we are telling ourselves we're doing it to support the community. But your pie has been great, by the way. We've actually started ordering like pastas from your pies to stick in the in the refrigerator so we can eat them later. Maybe that's just a thing because we don't have a kitchen. But I very much encourage El Barrio. By the way, El Barrio is back.
Yep,
El Barrio has new ownership. They're back going on. Lots of great places to get food in Athens, other than than McDonald's and all the places that have sponsorships with the athletic department. And for the record, I support one of the things the athletic department defended in that tweet was they were saying, a lot of those places have local franchisees, which is true, but different than if you have a local business that's owned by local people. So by all means, ignore the athletic department and go get food from actual local businesses.
Yeah, and Terry Cruz, who's joining us today, says some of the restaurants in Jessup, he's down in Jessup, Georgia, are delivering groceries. He says, I love how they have adapted and keeps people home and locals employed. I agree, Terry.
Absolutely. And listen, we have started leaving notes again because we don't have a kitchen. We're getting a lot of stuff from Amazon. So we start leaving notes for our delivery people. And I tip the maximum every time you ever order anything. Like, by all means, what makes a community is that stuff and not McDonald's and Walmart.
So shifting gears a little bit, Will, I know that if anybody's been watching SportsCenter or paying attention to maybe they've been reading in The Athletic, MLB has been tinkering with a lot of strange things. And since you're employed by Major League Baseball, I figured you'd be really good to shed light on maybe briefly, like, what's going on, what could happen, and are they really going to ship 30 teams to Phoenix to play baseball?
Well, and to be fair, I do write for Major League Baseball, but I am from the editorial side. They do not tell me anything that's going on. I do not want to know anything that's going on unless they want to give me an exclusive, but I'm not in on the discussions. But when it comes to that specific plan, I feel like there's been a lot. For the record, I think it'd be really, really difficult to work. I wrote a piece for New York Magazine before baseball kind of tossed out its plan, when the NFL and the NBA were kind of floating around these buy-a-dome ideas where you could ship everybody to like one location. And I feel like the number of things that can go wrong with that are, it's hard. It's difficult to overstate how hard it is to do all of those things. Never minding just like the idea of you have to find like a place where there's only you have to find places for everyone to stay. You have to basically leave them away from their family. You have to if one person tests positive, it messes up the whole thing. The NFL was basically trying to like build an entire city, and I'm like, if you can do that, a lot of the rest of us could actually use that right now. Like I think that I understand the desire to get sports back, and I want sports back, and I actually think it wasn't fair for a lot of people to get so angry, not just at MLB but at NFL or NBA, because they're floating ideas because they're trying to figure something out, and I think there is value in that, because I also think that there's sort of this reflexive. How could you even talk about this yet? Like, I think it's okay to talk about this. Like, I think that we still have a long way to go, and there's a lot of, we've seen some progress. I think that what happens after the curve gets flattened a little bit may be just as important, particularly if we want football games in September. I think there's a way to do it right. The question is whether we will do it right, but certainly there's been progress, and I think with progress, you can start at least talking about these things. That Arizona plan seems ambitious, to say the least. Not so much that they would do it, but they would do it as soon as that story kind of implied. They were talking about getting started, the spring training started in May and maybe playing in June. That seems awfully ambitious. But the idea of thinking about ways to get something going and salvage a season for baseball, or salvage a season even if it comes to it for the NBA or hockey or even football, I think there's value in that, and I don't think there's anything wrong with considering possibilities. And I don't. Again, that Arizona plan, lots of problems with it, just like there were lots of problems with the NFL plan. But if there's going to be lots of problems with every plan, because there's lots of problems right now, and so the idea that a league should not at least consider every possibility, I don't understand what's necessarily wrong with that. But I don't think you're going to see it's hard to imagine that getting ready. To me, the next threshold for baseball, they've already canceled the London series, which I was going to go to with my parents, the Cardinals and Cubs. I think the next thing is probably the All-Star game. I feel like that's going to be tough to get going. You've heard stories of maybe if they lose the All-Star game, if they could do half a season and have like a big tournament all in Los Angeles at the end of the year. That makes a certain amount of sense. If you can get something going. But it's a bad sign that the Japanese Baseball League, who's been ahead of us in a lot of things, tried to get back going and has shut it down. And they've delayed it another month. It's worrisome. I think it's worrisome. I'm glad they're trying, but I don't think anyone thinks that they should be rushing it. Any of these sports should be rushing it.
So I'm guessing you're probably predicting that whenever the first sporting event starts, it's going to be definitely without fans.
I think so. I think it has to be. And I've heard from some people, Derek Gould from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, he's one of those, baseball isn't even baseball without fans, which I totally agree. But it is definitely more baseball than no baseball at all. And so for me, I think what's interesting is hear a lot of sports leagues say, listen, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to bring back people could use this right now, and and I agree, that's true, but they really desperately need the television programming, like in a financial way across the board. They need the television programming. They need that money so badly. So that's probably 85% of the reason they do it. 15% maybe they care about helping the country. And so I think that's why they're trying so many things and doing so many things. It's going to be a challenge. And I think, my fear is, particularly now that we're starting to have some success, it's starting to find the curve a little bit in New York, and I think you're starting to see some social distancing do what social distancing was supposed to do. I think there is now all right, it's starting to work. All right, we're done, right? We're almost done. Like, no, we are not almost done. It is. There's been encouraging. There's been good news. The last time I was on this podcast, I was ranting and raving at people about not taking this seriously. I have seen that to be different now. I have to say, I still think there's some dumbass local businesses who are tying up valuable city and county time with frivolous lawsuits to get themselves promotion. But on the whole, I think that people are being good and everywhere. And I have personally also found it irritating to see, while I may have some arguments against the way some of the local leadership, specifically state leadership, has handled this situation. I don't think that, I've seen some friends of mine on the East Coast be like, well, in the South, they're not taking this seriously. And that's just not true. That's not true. I'm not seeing that to be the case, other than the fact that, as my wife has been doing the grocery shopping, the rare run out visits, and she's like, older people definitely still don't seem to get that, don't pass me in the aisle.
Right.
Other than that, I haven't seen a widespread rebellion against this stuff. I feel like people have been doing the right thing, and I think we're seeing the results of that. The trick is making sure that we stick to it and don't get too impatient too early.
I agree. And, I've been reading a lot of historical writings and watching some videos on that whole 1918 pandemic. And, they talked about how the second wave was kind of worse than the first one. Yeah. And, I'm not a scientist, and it sounds pretty plausible to me. So I'm just going to kind of cool my jets, continue to do what I'm doing, keep my family safe. And, yeah, I'm the one designated to do the grocery shopping here. And I was getting some stuff today. I try to go once a week. And you're right. I'm kind of floored by the encroachment of the personal space, even though it still feels very weird. Now don't get me wrong. I still, as it's happening, I'm going I can't believe this is how I'm having to react. But I've found that I've become a lot more patient. I've always been a very patient person, but I'm even more chill now. We ordered a pizza the other night. They got it completely wrong. She apologized. I tipped her $10 extra dollars. It didn't matter to me. I was like, I got time. I'll wait. I think that all in all, from what I've seen and what I've heard from my family, I know my dad's taking it seriously. I know Jennifer's parents are taking it seriously. So, that's all I can base it on, because I don't leave my house very much.
Right. I think it's good. Honestly, you've not seen, other than, again, certain litigious and self-promotional dipshits. On the whole, I think that people across political persuasions are taking it seriously, and I think that is encouraging.
Yeah. So the last two topics I wanted to get into, Will's recent articles. I have this up here. I'm going to try to share my screen a little bit. So Will, I'm going to ask you about. Let's see if this works. It didn't work.
I'm on the delay, remember? So I'll
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to point out. You wrote one recently. I don't really care about Jason Varitek's impact on the Red Sox, but I know that came out today. The only thing I know about Jason Varitek is he was a catcher for Georgia Tech, so I don't like him.
He was. His jersey was retired, but.
So what's the gist of that article that you wrote?
Well, that one is it's a series that I'm doing where it's MLB. We need stuff to write about. There's no actual games. So I am doing two different series every week. One is looking back at a year in baseball history. This year, Atlanta fans will like this. It's about 1995. I wrote about 1995, looking back at that year in baseball history. And then the Jason Varitek thing was I write about a different player every week and kind of look at their story in like a macro sort of sense. And Varitek, I've looked at Varitek. I looked at Wally Joyner. I got an email from Wally Joyner thanking me for his piece about him and telling me that he shared it with his grandchildren. And I was like, oh my God, Wally Joyner has grandchildren. I am so old. And then Daryl.
You know where he went to high school?
BYU high school? He in Atlanta.
He went to Redan High School in near DeKalb County, Rockdale County area.
Yeah. I did know that, but he's Mormon because he went to BYU for college.
I didn't know that.
So anyway, but I'm doing that, and then I'm writing weekly for New York Magazine. It's usually about sports. This week I wrote about how bad Joe Biden's podcast is, and it is a bad podcast. Whatever your thoughts about Joe Biden, it is definitely a bad podcast. And I gave him some helpful tips and suggestions that will perhaps help him perhaps get elected so that we do not all die.
It was interesting because as I read that, it was a very technical, not technical like, here's what you need to cross and plug in and everything. But it was like 5 points of like, hey, don't record via Zoom. Hey, have a co-host with them. That makes it easier. It was very basic.
Exactly. And I think it actually speaks a little bit to how behind the curve the campaign is, that they did not know 5 very obvious things about podcasting. And I mean, listen, you do this more than I do. You have more skills in this than I do. But I produce the Grayson and Leach podcast. I have some basic understanding of this, and they seem to have nobody on hand who had that. So, and listen, the tone of the article was definitely, I noticed that a lot of Bernie bros retweeted it. And I'm like, no, I'm not like, get out of here, Bernie. This is over. Go home. Go home. No offense, buddy, but this is not about you anymore. The tone of the piece was definitely not Joe Biden's an idiot. What a jerk. Like the whole point was that like, hey, listen, I'm just telling you, this is a way you could possibly help.
Yeah, your podcast is trash. Yeah, the production quality of it. Okay, so I've got a screenshot right here. I don't know if you can see it, but I took this from your article about the 95 season. And this is the segment on the Braves. And so I found this interesting, and I'm going to read it in case people can't see it. So you say, the Atlanta Braves finally won what turned out to be their only World Series. This is 1995. This wasn't one of the Braves' best teams, though they were on a 100-win pace. But it featured perhaps Maddox's best season and a peak year from Ryan Klesko, of all people. I agree. That's a point to be made. This was also Mark Wohler's one amazing year as a closer. The Braves finished off the upset of the Indians in the World Series, though there are many Georgia residents, and this is what I have a question about. I'm wondering if maybe you have some experience to be able to just pull this right off the top of your head because of the Waiting Since Last Saturday podcast. You say, though there were many Georgia residents who can't help but connect the title with the one time Steve Spurrier in Florida ever played in Sanford Stadium and put 55 points on the Bulldogs, which happened the same day. Even when Atlanta fans win, it can feel like they lost. You'll often see this referred to as the most recent title in major Atlanta sports history, unless you count Atlanta United's 2018 MLS title, which you should. So my question is, we do a fantasy football together, and my fantasy football team name is Not Since 1995, referencing that last title from the Braves. And then also I gave you that little insight probably 5 years ago about the Steve Spurrier connection. So I just wanted to say I appreciate that. I tried to tag
WSLS, but I don't know if that's MLB style.
No, but I thought that was it was very succinct, very accurate. So yeah, y'all go check out Will's writings, subscribe to his newsletter, and you can find all the links there. I think it's williamfleach.substack.com to subscribe to his newsletter.
While we're promoting stuff, by the way, one thing that my wife and my mother are doing together, which is unnerving on its own. But my wife, as a lot of people know, is an interior decorator, and she has been designing masks for people. because this has become a thing, like designer masks, perhaps inevitably.
Right.
And so my mother, in addition to being a lifelong emergency room nurse, is also a seamstress. So they are actually, if you go to alexisstevensonid.com, at the top of the page, you can click right there. They are making masks. They are asking for a $20 donation or more. All proceeds are going to the Athens Nurses Clinic, which we have raised like almost $1,000 so far. So by all means, if you are looking for, if that continues to be a thing in public life, if you go to this, when she goes to the grocery store, she wears a mask. I think a lot of people are wearing masks when they go to the grocery store. These are more than just tying a bandana around. Like you can see them. I encourage you. We'll get them shipped to you and we'll go out to you. AlexisStevensonID.com and get those masks.
That's awesome.
For Athens Nurses Clinic. For the Athens Nurses Clinic.
No, I think that's good. I'm sorry I wasn't paying attention because my camera feed died. Luckily, I have a backup camera feed, so I had to switch to my my FaceTime camera on my computer. So I was just, now we're on opposite sides. Anyway, you don't know that. So definitely do that. What Will was talking about with the masks.
Yeah, whatever the hell I was saying, yes.
Yeah, whatever. I'm sorry. I was having technical difficulties. And it's live. So so anyway, what I wanted to do now, this is the Jeopardy round. I have 5 questions, Jeopardy questions for you. And we're going to start. Tony got, I think, 0 out of 5. I think you got the bonus question. So I tried to make these all pertain to Georgia football. And they all took place in times that you were here or you would know. So the $200 Jeopardy question, please deliver your response in the form of a question.
Got it.
All right. The $200 question. With 1 minute and 39 seconds left on the clock in the fourth quarter, Bo Nix was sacked by this UGA freshman defensive end for a loss of 5 yards, thus securing a 21-14 win for the Dogs versus Auburn in 2019.
Was he a freshman?
Freshman defensive end got a sack on Bo Nix that essentially iced the game.
I think I know this. Is that Trayvon Walker?
That's right.
Boom!
You got it correct.
Take that, Tony.
All right, so now the $400 Jeopardy question. Sophomore Jacob Eason left with a knee injury, giving way to freshman Jake Fromm, and the Bulldogs won 31-10 in this 2017 season opener versus this team.
Shoot. Middle Tennessee State.
Probably similar conference, but the answer of that is Appalachian State.
Appalachian State, that's right. I knew it was someone better than you thought. That's right. Yeah, that was the game. Remember, some people predicted Appalachian State to win that game.
Yeah. And you didn't answer in the form of a question. So
that's right. So it doesn't count. Who is Appalachian State?
Yeah, Daniel Partain, who's in this chat, got it correctly. Congrats, Daniel, who is App State. So did Terry Crews. Oh, no, Terry Crews got it wrong. He said Austin P with a P-E-E. Yes. And Robert Wolf got it correct right there. Who is App State?
I knew that was App State. I just forgot. Okay, next.
All right, so the $600 Jeopardy Georgia Bulldog question is, in 2019, Sanford Stadium was renamed as Dooley Field at Sanford Stadium. In 1911, Dr. Sanford moved the football field from this field on North Campus.
Oh, I wouldn't know this. I don't know any campus. I didn't go to school here. I don't know any of this stuff. Though I'd like to point out, I always love the fact that I'm sure other people have noticed this. When you use Google Maps, it still says Sam Org Stadium.
Really?
Have you noticed that? It says Sam Org Stadium because my exit off the loop is exit 7, which is University of Georgia and Sanford Stadium. But for some reason, Google calls it Sam Org Stadium. So Sam Org. What is Sam Org Field?
My cousin who went to Georgia, graduated with an MIS degree, works for Google. So I know that I need to talk to him about that because he would not.
That's very wrong.
Yeah,
that's very wrong.
So since you don't know the answer to this, Jim,
I think I figured it out. I think, what is Hurdy Field?
I think you might have seen the comment section because
no, I don't even know. Here's the comments.
We've got Jim and Daniel and James Lawson and Robert Wolf all got that correct. Congratulations to all of them. And Will, we are on the $800 Jeopardy question.
Okay.
Here we go.
I've already beat Tony.
That's true. Georgia head coach Kirby Smart played safety for the Bulldogs from 1995 to 1998 and wore this number.
Oh, it's for the record, by the way, I don't know if I'm going to get this right. I am officially of the belief that if you wear the coach's throwback jersey, you're a dork. Unless you're a kid, kids can wear anything, whatever they want. If you're like a grown person rooting for management, I don't think you should be doing that. Just before, 14. What is 14?
No, that would have been Mike Bobo back then. Mike Bobo wore 14 during those years.
I was close.
Very close.
Yeah.
Jim's got it. Daniel's got it. What is James has it? What is 16?
I was in the right ballpark. I was in the right ball.
Yeah. All right. Terry Crews also got it. What is 16? All right. The final Jeopardy question for you today, the $1,000 question is, at the end of the 2015 season, Coach Mark Richt was fired as UGA's head football coach. He did not coach in the bowl game, but this assistant was the interim head coach and got the win.
I'm so rusty. Oh my gosh, this is an embarrassment.
He now coaches for South Carolina along with
I know. I love this dude. I like this guy, and I can't think of his name. Because it's awesome. Because when you look at the record books, it's just that one little game that pops up there. If I wait a little bit longer, someone in the comments will say it. And I know. Who is Brian McClendon?
That's correct. Brian McClendon, who, interestingly enough, he also wore number 16. I think when he played for Georgia. Yeah. And,
I should have known. That's embarrassing. The App State one and the McClendon one, I should have got those.
Yeah, and of course Terry, Jim, and James all got that correct. So, and I want to thank Basin Dog. He's on Twitter. He sent that question in, and it was crazy because I had just put that same question in, which is like I sent the Spider-Man meme. We're doing the same thing. So I appreciate all the interaction on that. But yeah, that does it for this live stream.
It's fun. That was fun. I was dreading this, but it was fun.
Yeah,
it was fun. I enjoyed this. Even though I had an umbrella attack in the middle of the podcast.
We hadn't even discussed what we discussed with Tony about getting a WSLS TikTok account, and a couple of the comments were saying that that would be the first TikTok to put up there is So why
can't we do 3 people on this? It's just impossible. If you really can't do 3 people,
you could if I use Zoom.
Yeah.
So and then
but we have multiple people that talk over Skype. Like when we did the post game show, we have multiple people that talk over Skype, right?
Right, but to do this live feed with the software, a split screen. Yeah, I'm using Ecamm Live, and that allows me to put all these graphics up on the board and everything like that.
Got it.
Yeah, so Robert says, let's get Alexa on camera next time. So
yeah, she's worked for years as a cam girl. So I think that would be a good opportunity. Just because I'm going to get yelled at for that joke, I remind everyone to go to alexasivas@it.com and get the mask that her and my mother are putting together. I'll have you know, my mother made me a Cardinals face mask. So I have a Cardinals protective mask that whenever I do go out, my wife is the badass that goes to the grocery store. But I'll get it out if you see me out. I'm wearing my Cardinals mask.
Well, let me play the outro music. Is it playing? I was gonna play our song, but I guess it's not playing. There's technical difficulties. I had a camera die.
That's how it goes, right?
I had a camera die, and luckily, redundancy is good, so I had a backup. But yeah, this was fun. I appreciate you joining me. We'll do it again because I haven't seen you since the end of February, and
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. And I'd like to remember, I know we joked about this in the last podcast, but when we finished the last podcast together, you literally asked the question, so should I worry about this coronavirus thing? And my response is no. What are you, an idiot? I didn't say that. But
right.
But I was feckless in a specifically Kemp sort of way, so I will take my hit in that regard.
Well, thanks for joining me. Stay safe, and go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Appreciate everybody joining us. Y'all be safe, and we'll catch you next time. See you on Twitter.